Sheila Carter was no stranger to betrayal, but what she had witnessed from Lee Finnegan was something else entirely. It wasn't just controlling or manipulative, it was surgical, clinical, cruel. The way Lee had handled Luna's breakdown, the secrets she'd buried, the cold discipline she'd disguised as protection, it lit a fire inside Sheila that wouldn't go out. She had tried to stay away, tried to be better, tried for Deacon, for Finn to change. But now, all bets were off. When Sheila found out Luna was still alive, barely keeping it together after everything Lee had done to cover up what really happened that night, something snapped. Luna had been used like a pawn, silenced, hidden away, stripped of autonomy while Lee pulled every string behind the scenes. The girl was drowning in guilt and isolation, and Lee had orchestrated every detail to make sure Luna didn't speak. But Sheila saw it. And Sheila had never been good at keeping secrets, especially when they were someone else's to weaponize. So she did the one thing everyone feared she'd do. She went to Finn. Finn had kept his distance from Sheila. Despite the tenuous truce they'd formed in the aftermath of Steffi's ultimatum and the chaos that had nearly destroyed their family, trust was not something easily rebuilt. But when Sheila showed up at his clinic, eyes heavy, voice low, carrying the weight of something too big to hide, he listened. Against his better judgment, he listened. "She's alive, Finn," Sheila said. "Luna. And she's not well. You're motherly, she's hiding things. Dangerous things. She's trying to put Luna away." At first, Finn resisted. Denial was easier. It was cleaner. But Sheila didn't stop there. She laid it out, all of it. The night Luna confronted Sheila. The aftermath. The cover-up. The lies Lee told to protect her own name, her position, her spotless reputation. And finally, the twisted plan. Lee intended to hand Luna over to the police, spin her as unstable, criminally liable, dangerous. All to protect her image. "She's your family," Sheila said, her voice cracking. "But so is Luna now. And what Lee is doing to her, it's not right. You know it." Finn sat in silence. The walls around him tightened. His mother, the woman who raised him, trained him, molded him, could she really be capable of something this ruthless? And if Sheila was telling the truth, what then? Sheila reached for him. It was a simple gesture. A hand on his shoulder. Then a hug. That's all it took. That single moment, 10 seconds of human contact, was seen by someone else. Someone who never should have been there. And, just like that, the war reignited. Because what no one expected was that Lee had been tracking Sheila. Suspicious. Paranoid. Ever since Luna had started asking questions again, ever since Deacon had gone silent and rumors about Sheila's return began to swirl, Lee knew something was coming. When she saw the footage, Sheila, at the clinic, hugging Finn, she didn't see a moment of weakness. She saw betrayal. She saw her world cracking. And she panicked. Lee stormed into the clinic later that day, demanding answers. Accusing. Raging. She called Sheila a liar, a manipulator, a sociopath who had tricked Finn again. But this time, Finn didn't flinch. He stood his ground. He asked questions. Hard questions. Questions Lee refused to answer. "What did you do to Luna, Mom?" Lee's face went pale. "You tried to have her committed. You drugged her. You threatened her. You told her no one would believe her. You don't understand, no, you don't understand," Finn snapped. "She's a victim. She was lost. And you used that. You buried her alive." Sheila watched the whole thing from the hallway. It was everything she'd wanted and more. Because in that moment, Lee lost control. And for someone like Lee, control was everything. But it didn't stop there. Sheila had been smart. For once, painfully smart. She'd recorded her conversation with Lee. The threats. The admissions. The panic. And she didn't just keep it for herself, she turned it over to the authorities. Within 24 hours, a warrant was issued. Lee Finnegan was arrested for obstruction of justice, medical misconduct, and unlawful detainment. The news spread like wildfire. The Forrester family was blindsided. Ridge was furious. Brooke was vindicated. Luna was finally believed. But for Finn, it was devastation. He had lost his mother. And Sheila had gained something dangerous: credibility. The woman no one trusted was suddenly the one telling the truth. The pariah had become the savior. She had freed Luna. She had exposed Lee. She had helped the system work. And in doing so, she had wormed her way back into Finn's life. Not fully. Not easily. But the door was open. Cracked. And Sheila, patient and relentless, knew how to bide her time. She never said, "I told you so." She didn't need to. She let Finn come to her. Let him ask the next questions. Let him see the parts of her he wasn't ready to believe existed: the compassion, the fire, the loyalty twisted into madness. And he did. Slowly. Warily. With hesitation, but without resistance. Meanwhile, Luna was recovering. Guilt-stricken. Fragile. But finally free from the grip of Lee's manipulation. And yet, she too knew what had been traded. She saw Sheila differently now. Not as a monster, but as something more dangerous. A survivor with power. And a motive. Because Sheila hadn't just exposed Lee to help Luna. She did it to win. To win Finn. And she had. Piece by piece. One secret at a time. Now, the battlefield had shifted. Lee was behind bars. Sheila stood outside, righteous in her victory. And Finn? He was standing in the middle of the ruins, trying to figure out which way was home. After her sudden hospitalization, Brooke Logan emerged more determined than ever. For too long, she had watched her daughter Hope stumble through heartbreak, false starts, and manipulative lovers, always hoping this time would be different. But as she lay in that hospital bed, surrounded by silence, monitors, and the sterile cold of a too familiar setting, Brooke saw the truth she'd been trying to avoid: her daughter was walking straight into another disaster. And this time, it had a name: Carter Walton. Hope had always believed in love. She gave people chances they didn't deserve, extended forgiveness like oxygen, and convinced herself that commitment could fix what trust never really built. And Carter? He played the part well: charming, loyal, successful, the picture of stability in a world filled with broken promises. But behind his polished exterior was something darker, something Brooke had overlooked until it was almost too late. Once out of the hospital, Brooke didn't waste time. She called Ridge. They had their differences, too many to count. But one thing united them: protecting their children. Over breakfast meetings and late-night calls, they constructed the Logan Forrester Accord, a 3-rule code meant to guide their families away from emotional ruin. No rushed marriages. No unconditional forgiveness. No personal scandal that jeopardizes professional integrity. Hope, unknowingly, was the first test case. Brooke smiled, nodded, supported Hope's relationship on the surface. But behind the scenes, she was digging. Something didn't feel right. Carter's recent evasiveness, his sudden withdrawals from public life, the odd way he shifted every time his phone rang, it all gnawed at her. And then came the moment that changed everything. A message. An email. No subject line. Just one name in the signature: Daphne. The contents were chilling. A desperate plea. A story that unraveled Carter's image in a matter of paragraphs. Daphne had been involved with Carter months before he and Hope officially began dating. At first, it was harmless, even sweet. But then she got pregnant. And everything changed. Carter, terrified of scandal, reputation, and the possible fallout with the Forresters, told Daphne to disappear. He paid her to leave town, threatened to sue if she went public, and made it clear he wanted no part in raising the child. Daphne complied, but not before she contacted Brooke, the only person she thought might listen. Brooke nearly dropped the phone. Her first instinct was disbelief. Carter? The same man who had claimed to be a victim of Quinn's betrayal? The same man who had begged for a second chance at love with Hope? It didn't add up. So Brooke investigated. Quietly. Carefully. She traced Daphne's story, verified her claims, and uncovered hospital records, travel receipts, and messages that confirmed every detail. There was no denying it. Carter had betrayed not just Daphne, but every woman who had believed in his honor. And now he was set to marry Hope. Brooke sat on the edge of her bed that night, hands trembling as she held the printed evidence in her lap. She could ruin Carter with this. But more importantly, she could save Hope from walking into a lie. The next day, the city buzzed with anticipation. The Forrester estate was being prepped for yet another grand wedding. Designers fluttered around with gowns, florists stacked endless white roses, and stylists triple-checked every detail. Hope, glowing and blissfully unaware, tried on her dress one last time, surrounded by friends who praised her beauty and wished her happiness. But behind the scenes, time was ticking. That night, Brooke asked to speak with Hope alone. They sat in the living room, the distant hum of wedding preparations still vibrating through the walls. Brooke didn't waste time. She pulled the file from her bag, placed it on the coffee table, and met her daughter's eyes. "Before you marry Carter, I need you to read this." Hope hesitated. Then she opened the file. The room was silent as she read. Pages of text, photos, statements. Daphne's story. The ultrasound photo. The proof of the payoff. The timeline that aligned perfectly with the beginning of her own relationship with Carter. Hope said nothing, but her hands began to shake. He was going to leave after the wedding, Brooke added. He planned to find Daphne again. I found that out from a travel confirmation in his name. He booked a one-way ticket, 2 days after the ceremony. Hope stood, walked to the window. Her reflection stared back at her, pale and hollow. This can't be real. I wish it wasn't, Brooke replied. Hope didn't sleep that night. She wandered the house, her wedding dress still hanging by the mirror, untouched. She replayed every moment with Carter, every whispered promise, every kiss, every smile, and wondered how much of it had been real. Or if any of it had. By morning, the wedding guests arrived in droves. The Forresters, the Spencers, the Logans. Photographers lined the gates. Journalists waited for headlines. Ridge stood beside Brooke, watching the door. But Hope never came down. Instead, she asked Carter to meet her privately. They stood in the guest suite, the dress still in its garment bag. She handed him the file. He read it. Slowly. Expressionless. When he finally looked up, she asked only one question. Is any of it a lie? Carter sighed. No. Hope nodded. Her face was unreadable. Calm, almost too calm. You were going to marry me. Knowing this. I didn't know how to stop it, Carter said. I didn't want to lose you. But I couldn't tell you. Not with everything we've been through. You already lost me, she said, turning away. There was no explosion. No screaming. No dramatic slap. Just quiet, precise heartbreak, the kind that doesn't make headlines, but cuts deeper than scandal ever could. An hour later, Brooke informed the guests that the ceremony was canceled. The press was told there was a family emergency. Carter left quietly through the service entrance. Hope remained upstairs, surrounded by silence. Days passed. Then weeks. Hope didn't speak to Carter again. He left Los Angeles. Rumors swirled that he had gone to find Daphne, but no one could confirm where he landed. Brooke and Ridge tightened the Logan, Forrester Accord. The rules had been tested and held. Scandal had been avoided. A trap had been dodged. But the cost was visible on Hope's face every time she passed a mirror. She had believed in love again. And once again, it had betrayed her. Only this time, thanks to Brooke, she hadn't signed her life away before it did.